Hi, I'm Patric Palm, CEO and founder of Favro, and this is the Learn from Leaders podcast. The background to these interviews is that Favro clients are some of the most innovative and agile businesses out there. And it's used for collaborative planning by marketing teams, by product teams, HR, management teams. And what this means is that we get to know some truly inspiring people. So what we do in this podcast is that I invite them here for a conversation about something where they are true leaders, so we can all learn from it. Let's go.
So I'm super happy to have Matt here today because this is an example. We met in LA, quite early in the journey of Favro, and now when we do this series, when we invite people from Favro clients to join this conversation, live right now, and we have been having a ton of people watching these webinars, the recording of them afterwards. So this summer has been really great for that too. So anyways, having that opportunity to meet people like you, Matt, has been truly inspiring. But that's basically the backstory to how we met. But what I think would be really great here is if you could just kind of give us your story. How did you get into the industry and to where you are today, and working on the cool stuff that we see in your background.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, this is our game, Pandora Rising. Yeah, thank you for having me here today, Patrick and John. Really great to be here talking about game development with you. These are truly unprecedented times. I think I've faced some of the most interesting and unique challenges of my career in the last 6 months, transitioning a massive development team to working remotely and still managing to support a soft launched game, a live game with our release cadence and stuff. So a lot of really interesting stuff to talk about here. A little bit on my background, I have a film and television production degree from USC. So working on Avatar is kind of a realization of a dream I had when I was much younger, to be connected to the film industry and get to work with our partners at Lightstorm on this incredible IP. I got started at Electronic Arts doing esports broadcasting, television production for the esports component of the Command & Conquer franchise. And then I joined the development team, and a lot of that core development team is actually still working with us today on Pandora Rising. We've worked through several different companies along the way. And our journey has taken us from PC games to console games to Facebook games and now mobile games. And often in the strategy genre. So that's a little bit about how we got to where we are.
And you mentioned your background from film, and as long as I've been in this industry, we always have had this conversation around the convergence, the overlap between these industries. Can you what's your take on the current state of the film industry versus the game industry, and convergence, and kind of how this has been developing over time? Because you must have also seen change if you just look at the last 5 years or longer.
Yeah, it's something that we think about a lot. I guess the way I would describe it is games used to be these $60 experiences where you're driving to get to a gold master and then you release it. And that's kind of like what films have always been as well. Sort of an auteur experience, right? Where there's a single vision holder or a team's vision that is realized and then only released to customers when it's finished. Games now have gotten to these operated live services modes now, which is very different, where now we have this direct and daily relationship with our players, where we build the game and we release it, sure, but we're really trying to build a community that can last for years with online games. And we hope that our players love our games, and then we collect their feedback and we iterate and we release new content, and really the players are a part of the journey. And I think that is where the film and television industry is headed as well, if you look at the streaming services, because in the past, these film companies, they had to rely on things like Nielsen ratings or critical scores like Rotten Tomatoes to try and get any sort of feeling as to what's working and what's not working. But now with streaming, they also are able to have this direct and daily relationship with their customers. They're able to see which shows they like, and if they like this show, will they like that show, and did they turn off at exactly minute 17 of this episode, and why was that? That creates a lot of problems as well. You could get, in the gaming space too, you can get too obsessed with the data. You could have a data-driven design, has some negative connotations to it as well. But it's just a really interesting transformation that I think is happening in both industries right now.
So this question is a little bit fluffy, but it's something I've been thinking quite a bit about recently. Today the game industry is bigger than the movie industry and the music industries combined, and I have a feeling that the mainstream hasn't really understood that yet. The media hasn't understood that yet. It hasn't sunk in. But I also think that we in the industry haven't really realized that yet. So in terms of there's also a lot of power that comes with that. There's a lot of IPs being developed today that are really coming from the game industry rather than film as well. So and you're obviously sitting in very much the crossroads of all of this. Let's put it, maybe teething problems is probably the wrong term, but what is your view on some of them, let's say immaturities that we might have in the game industry, where we haven't fully realized how big we are, and things that you predict will change a lot the coming 5 years. So if we were just now looking back, if you also can look forward, what do you see?
Wow, that's a great question. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think some of that comes with being newcomers, like film and television have been around for decades, and gaming is only just now starting, and music as well. Gaming is only just now starting to find its footing. We don't have as many, quote, celebrities in the gaming world yet that we've had over the multiple decades of film and music. It's still becoming a part of the cultural zeitgeist in a way that film and music have already long established. So yeah, we'll have to see where that's going. I do think that games are becoming more and more mainstream. I love what Fortnite has been doing with holding a concert in that game, or debuting a movie clip in the world of Fortnite to sort of bring all these things together. I think seeing more and more things like that could be a big part of it. When you make a game, you're building a world, and it's a place that people can visit and spend time in, and become fans of and obsess over. Riot Games has done an excellent job of this with the whole League of Legends universe, their world, and all the other games and stories that exist in it. So yeah, I think we're just getting started, and it's only getting bigger for sure.
So if we zoom in a little bit more on the producer's perspective here, what's the biggest changes in really, let's say, production practices that you have seen over the last couple of years? And obviously, one place where we will end up in this conversation is with remote work, going from kind of opportunity driven to really necessity driven now. So we're definitely going to go into that topic as well. But if you look a little bit broader, how was it being a producer, and what were the kind of the challenges you were tackling then that have maybe more changed now over time?
Yeah, I don't know if this just relates to my experience and the companies I've worked at or the larger industry, but one trend that I've observed over the last several years is a shift to empowering teams more, to having it be less about a single leader at the top of a project and more about, when we spin up a new feature on our games, we identify a creative lead and a delivery lead for that feature, a project manager type. And we give those two individuals a tremendous amount of autonomy to work with the game leads, come up with their design, schedule it out, build it, play test it, check it into our mainline branch, and develop and release it. And I have just observed that, at least on our teams over the past several years, we've been pushing that power and that ownership lower and lower in the project And it's been leading to some incredible results, because when people feel empowered and able to take control of their own features, their own development timelines, they can make some really cool stuff, and that passion really comes through. So that's one trend that we were seeing, before and even after the whole coronavirus thing.
So, doubling down then on the remote, work part. I mean, what, if you would create, a bit of a playbook on the fly here, and sit down with the studio which is struggling, or it's just getting started, and they need to work in a remote first way. I mean, what's your learnings so far, both before the coronavirus, but obviously also now, during these times?
Yeah, it kind of falls into two categories, and you start with the first one. The first one is just the fundamentals, the blocking and tackling. That's like, what tools are we going to use? What meetings are we going to keep? What new meetings do we need to establish? What's our review process going to look like? And that stuff's really important to figure out and share and standardize with your team. And I could talk about that, but I think a lot of that's pretty common knowledge at this point. The thing that's been very interesting for me and our teams is kind of the softer skills, the stuff around the edges of working remote that's actually really challenging, that maybe people don't think about as much. Things like making sure that everybody has a webcam so that you can see people's faces, like the importance of being able to understand emotion or context through seeing someone's eyes, and really encouraging people to turn on their cameras when they're presenting, or have their cameras on in one-on-ones. Maybe you don't need it on in a team meeting. Other things too, like etiquette within Slack or other project manager or other communication tools that you use. It's much more important when you're remote, if somebody asks you a question, to just send a quick reply and just say, I don't, I'll get back to you, or I'm looking into this. Just acknowledge, receipt of these things. There's so much that we took for granted when we were face to face. That's just these subtle communications that people just do without even realizing it, whether it's, I need a quick answer, so I'll just walk up to someone's desk and get the answer. And now you can't do that. And so you hope that you'll get the quick answer by just pinging them in your chat system, but maybe they have their notifications muted or whatever. And, little things like that that get in the way of effective communications and working together. And then I guess the final piece of advice is just having your presence be understood, whether it's like, at the start of your day, just typing into your team chat channel, good morning, just so that people know, oh, okay, so Matt's online now. And when you're signing off, say, good night. Little things like that make a big difference, because you would do that in the office as well. You would see that Matt has walked into the office. You'd see me set down my bag, grab my coffee, and you don't get some of that stuff now. So.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think we, I think we do a lot of things right with this at Favro, but that last thing we talked about now, we aren't doing. So I'll probably start doing that now.
Yeah.
So the from the producer point of view, could you touch a bit upon the kind of challenges and some advice you have when leading a team that is working with external IP, because this is something that obviously we've been doing for a long time in this industry, and that comes with a couple of different challenges a little bit unique to those kind of those games, and I think you are in a great position to share some best practices around that.
Yeah, well, the first piece of advice in working with a major IP gets back to your earlier point about how big games are and what a great opportunity this could be. With a lot of IPs, if you're working on a game, that game actually has, in many cases, more earnings potential than even the original IP, if it's a mid-tier movie or a television show or something like that. And a lot of times these licensors, they don't understand that. So I think it really starts with an education campaign for your licensor, showing them what you're trying to do, what your targets are, how big this can really be, and how it can reach new audiences for them, to kind of make them believers and get them in your corner. Thankfully, our partners on Avatar at Lightstorm really understand this and are very bought into to gaming like ours. So that's one piece of it. And then another piece is just becoming making sure that your team puts in the time and energy to become great brand stewards. Like really understand what's important about this IP to the IP holders and to the creatives that originated it, that made this, and make sure that every piece of art that you make, every design decision that you make is true to their brand, because you're just the steward. You know, they created it, it's their thing, and you want to take excellent care of it and bring it to new customers, new markets.
You know, from you've been using Favro for a while, and do you have a few examples of very specific challenges in production that you addressed with Favro?
Yeah, actually relating to our licensor, we use Favro for our approvals process, and we actually introduced Favro to the team at Fox, now Disney, because we were doing our approvals through Favro with them, and they've since expanded it, and they're handling all of their approvals with all of their license teams through Favro, which is great. It's a really useful tool for us because when you create a card, you can attach assets to it. They show up in a preview. It's very simple to drag things around, add comments, tag people, and get email alerts. It's something that people who don't really understand project management tools or don't want to go deep on understanding project management tools can just see this quick visualization and understand how to engage with it. It's got version history and markups and things like that we use as well.
I hope you enjoyed that interview. I certainly did. If you want to elevate yourself as a modern leader and help your teams become even more successful, then check out Favro Academy at favro.com. There you will find podcasts, webinars, articles, all free of charge. Check it out.